Hi, my name is Gerhard Schwantner. Welcome to Selling Power TV. Today is my great pleasure of meeting with Devin Reed, and he's the Content Strategy Manager for Gong.io. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So what's so fascinating about content for you?
For me, I think that, especially as a salesperson in my previous life as of a few months ago, and when you're ever trying to be better as a salesperson, there's tons of content out there, right? And so what was interesting to me is coming from a salesperson making content for salespeople was trying to raise that bar and find something, a unique angle, and really just teach salespeople, something either they already knew in a more interesting way, or just enlighten them and help them be better at their craft.
So the focus is better conversation for salespeople, better storytelling, better customer success stories.
Absolutely.
Right. Share a little bit with us, what's the big idea behind Gong.io?
Absolutely. So I would say the big idea is starting to shed light into what's working and not working when you look at your go-to-market messaging, right? And so a lot of times we have the big ideas that happen in boardrooms, we decide what our message is going to be, and then there's oftentimes an unfortunate gap that happens between strategy and execution. And so what we're doing is helping salespeople be better at their craft, but also sales leaders understanding what's really happening in the field by giving them an unfiltered view at the conversations their teams are having, so that way they can iterate that process and make sure that they're going to market with messaging that resonates.
So you have a message that resonates, then you have the salesperson telling the story, but then you have the AI analyzing both.
Exactly.
Okay. So how does that analytic actually function in real life?
Sure. So there's a few different ways. We kind of break it up into people success, deal success, and strategy success. So if you think of people success, it's putting a number to soft skills, which is kind of impossible, right? So things like how often does a salesperson talk versus listen? How patient are they when they respond? And so when you put a number to these things, it's really tough to challenge when your manager says, hey, Devin, you're talking a little too much on a discovery call, right? And so we provide some insights and analytics there to say, here's best practice, general B2B sales. Here's where you and your team are falling, so you can help get better in that way. If you look at deal success, it's giving you a true view of your pipeline, giving you some insights in terms of what does the engagement really look like, what were the last steps, what's happening next. All those things that you're commonly hear in a pipeline review, right? So it kind of gives you the answers to those questions. And then the strategy pillar is kind of what we're saying, the high level. Like if we have our demo pitch, what part of it is resonating, what part is not, what's being used, so on and so forth.
So let's zero in on engagement. How do you measure high quality engagement?
Sure. So yeah, it's common. You give your discovery playbook to 100 reps, right? They're all going to do kind of 100 varieties of it to some degree. And so what we do is we isolate when your prospect or your buyer is talking, isolate what the salesperson is doing, and then you can find patterns between one, just the salesperson themselves, like how often do we talk about price, when do we bring it up in conversation, and then we cross-reference that with your CRM data. So you could say, okay, if Devin talks about price for a minute 30 at this point in his discovery call, we can track that and see, well, does that have a positive or a negative outcome?
That is awesome. Yeah. So what you're saying is with the intelligence that you gather, you can be more predictive or help the salesperson understand it better,
right,
so that it can adjust and tweak the flow of the conversation. Right. Do you also measure how often salespeople sidetrack into an area that's not relevant?
It depends. If they do it in a way that causes enough like pattern recognition, right? I do the same tangent or the same kind of offsite or sidestep rather, then yeah, we will pick up on that. Right. But there are some interesting things just in saying how many, like across your 100 sales reps, how come some of them are spending twice as much time on objection handling than others? There's probably something in the messaging that's not resonating or not clear, which is leading to more objections, more questions, and not always the good kind.
Right. So let's move beyond the United States, globally. What do you see your tool is doing in foreign markets? Is it about the same, or is that like a Tower of Babel situation?
Good question and good analogy. I would say we're just kind of getting into the multi-language parts of it. So we have a speech-to-text engine that's always been English. Our market's always been North America. We're obviously starting to expand as we work with large North American companies that have offices in Germany and so on. But really what it is, imagine you're a VP of worldwide sales. The challenges between that and a VP of North American sales are very different, right? You have to understand the different nuances. And so it's providing an unfiltered view of not just, maybe your primary market, but your secondary and tertiary ones, and starting to get a better grip of what's going on.
When people go to your website, gong.io, what should they be looking for to discover you?
What should they be looking for? I think what they'll discover is an answer to problems they didn't know existed. Right? People oftentimes ask themselves, what separates my number one rep from everybody else? How can I clone that person? Or how can I speed up onboarding because I'm hiring 20 reps between now and Christmas, right? And so what they'll find are answers to problems that they thought were kind of previously accepted truths, but really there's a solve for that.
That's awesome. Is there one content piece you want to mention?
Yeah, sure. Selfless plug. Recently we put out an article called The Number One Signal If Your Deal Will Close. And the answer is email velocity. And what email velocity is the amount of emails sent back and forth between a prospect and seller over a certain amount of time. And what we found was the higher that velocity is, especially in the last week of a deal, is a great signal that deal is going to come in or not.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Devin.
Thank you.